I am Steelfur Speaks, and this is Steelfur on Sunday, back again for your Sunday news bulletin in the world of flesh and blood. Now, as I said last week, unfortunately I was sick, so I couldn't make an episode. If you saw my post on Blue Sky, it just was not going to happen, but here we are again. What has happened in the news? The first thing, of course, and we'll kind of do the last 2 weeks since I wasn't here last week, Aurora has Living Legend took only 51 points with her, which is quite good. So, hasn't really taken a huge amount of points off the board, which means other heroes could still get there. We have seen 9 points come in for Dash. We have seen some points for Azalea, some points for Nu. I don't think at this stage another hero could successfully go to Living Legend unless it's Dash, and I don't think she is going to. Sorry, I'm aware my face is very big. Let's just put this up. So Aurora has Living Legend. You can see that Dash is still quite close. But I don't really think we're going to see any other heroes going this ProQuest season. There could be a load of Dash wins, prove me wrong. I think the real things to report on is that Nu has gained 270 points, kind of continuing her inexorable path to Living Legend. And when she goes and gets another 150 points, that will be all of the Mistvale heroes gone. The other thing, of course, to report is that Florian has gained 308 points, a very solid amount from this season, and many people are saying that Florian, maybe mid-range Scepter Florian, is potentially the new best deck now that Aurora has gone, because he can beat slow decks, and he's quite good into fast decks with his mid-range approach and disruption. We will see how that plays out in the last weekend of ProQuest when I report on it next week. In addition, we had some more cards added to the card database for the Mastery Pack Guardian, Bravo Starter deck, and the Smash Palace set. As a reminder, the card database is a beta feature LSS launched to track all the cards in the game and their most recent printings. You can find that under Game on the Fab website. Go to card database and you can load that up. So we had more cards for Mastery Pack Guardian released. We had this Macho Grand art, which is sending a lot of the internet crazy because it's a big buff woman. I wonder why. We had Flatten the Field coming out, which seems quite good. Destroy, it's only for a mirror, but it's, good in the mirror. And then Crash and Bash, which seems very good. When this defends, you may reveal a card with Crush if you do create a Seismic Surge token. Lots of other interesting cards there that I'm sure you can dive into at your own leisure. There's also a big question as to whether this Guardian Bravo will be legal in an adult form in some fashion. Of course, for the Smash Palace heroes, they are all Guardian Pit Fighter. Pit Fighter heroes will never be legal in Classic Constructed. Still, it is interesting to see some of those cards being drip-fed out. Are you excited for Smash Palace? Are you excited for the Mastery Pack Guardian? My personal thoughts are, because I have played Guardian for a long time, I am cautiously excited. I am a bit concerned about the number of cards in the Mastery Pack Guardian that are obviously going to be focused on Smash Palace and focused on the mirror, like that destroying Seismic Surge tokens or only targeting another Guardian card. I do worry about what that does to the strength of the entire set, but I understand that there is a balance to be made between giving Guardians power and then also, not making Guardian the best class in the game forever because they got a whole set to support them. The other piece of news just to note with the discussion around Aurora is that it was confirmed by Brian Gottlieb, one of the devs on Twitter, that originally one of the cards, I think it is Skyward Serenade, in the Aurora deck was supposed to be Choose 2, but was printed with select all 3 modes or select as many modes as you want to. And that was deemed to be a printing error, but they let it happen because they thought that it would be okay. That has raised a fair few questions about whether Aurora would have Living Legend if that card had been printed as designed, and also a lot of questions necessarily about how an earlier version of a printing of a card successfully made it through quality assurance. Now, I will say, having played a lot of card games, LSS's quality assurance is quite good. These mistakes do happen, and then games kind of respond to them in the same way that LSS has. They tend to evaluate the card. They see, is the card mechanically functional? If it's not, they errata it. And then if the card is mechanically functional, they stop and they ask 2 questions. Is this okay to have in the game, or is it not? And if it's not, then they ask the second question, which is, do we change it, right? Lots of games do not want to issue errata. Errata are a thing that add mental burden when you're designing and playing a deck, especially when it's a new player product. So the choice is made not to issue an errata and just let the card go. But the big debate, of course, is how quickly would Aurora have Living Legend if that card was printed differently, as it did become a staple in the deck the second it was printed. Just a quick point that the week after I published my first Steelfur Speaks weekly news video, LSS have now launched their World Tour weekly news podcast hosted by Majin Bay. Now, I'm not Majin Bay, but I clearly came up with this idea first. So, I'm watching LSS, stealing my ideas. It's really cool, actually, that they've dedicated the budget to pay Majin Bay to create all of these assets and to do a weekly recap of all of the metagame analysis from every season of the World Tour. That's a really big investment in terms of LSS's budget. Well, not big in terms of the whole company, but deciding to spend that marketing money on this sort of video, which is directly reaching out to players to get them involved in what's happening in the World Tour, is fantastic. So while I'm a bit tongue-in-cheek, joking that they've stolen another one of my ideas, I'm also quite happy to see it. I think it's a really good and really interesting idea. One other thing I did want to take a small second just to note is that in the weekly Metagame Minute article, they directly called attention to the new dagger-focused Arachne Marionette archetype. I do expect we will see a lot more of this playing out. It does seem to be quite a popular deck. It did not have a huge amount of wins last week, most of those going to Aurora and Florian, but it does seem quite interesting to see it kind of taking off and to see that kind of archetype develop, which is not focused on the hero text with the stealth, focused instead on the daggers part of the hero. The other thing I want to briefly talk about, and I have done a whole video on this, so I do advise you to go and watch it, is that there are rumors circulating with people from stores commenting on the Discord, and of course there are noted issues with global shipping and macroeconomics happening right now, that there will be allocations or potentially delays for high seas, which could heavily affect US Nationals that's coming up. So, if you are planning for US Nationals, do make sure you've got your pre-orders in. You've had a discussion with your local singles seller. You have an idea of if you want to try and get into one of the new heroes. Maybe you're more mercenary and you'll just play one if it's good. Well, set aside some time that first week for testing. But it is just worth knowing that there are some rumbles that has been happening. And that is not just coming from me. There have been comments from different vendors who I speak to, who've commented on Discord, various stores talking about the allocations being cut, as well as some comments from some people close to LSS who have been hinting that there might be some disruption due to global shipping, and also just the broader trend reported from across the TCG space where, container shipping is expensive. TCG companies are not the drivers of container shipping and the global shipping market. They are people who benefit when things are going well because they can buy cheap space in ships that are already going to the right place. So even if the cards aren't made in China or countries with high levels of tariffs, Flesh and Blood cards are primarily printed in Belgium and Japan. Even if they aren't, they still could be affected by the knock-on effects of all of this confusion with shipping prices and tariffs and things like that. So do just bear that in mind. If you are someone who is very sensitive and saying, I want the best hero ever, then, be prepared to have to fight a bit harder to get those cards before US Nationals, before the national season. Otherwise, maybe consider putting in a bit more practice on a hero that is not from High Seas and just be prepared to adapt that hero for the meta that comes out when the High Seas Heroes comes out, when we have a few more spoilers and we can determine who has power and where the power is coming from. The last thing I want to comment on is that since I last checked, there have been 2 updates to the suspended players list. As always, when I bring these up, I want people to be aware of what is going on. I do not want to start a witch hunt. There should be no, focus on finding these people, talking to these people, right? We're just going to talk about why people are being suspended and why different suspensions happen for different times. So you can be aware that LSS is actively interceding when people cheat. They're not doing nothing. If you report things to your local judge community, to your judge regional organizer, to any judge or even to the OP team directly at at FABTCG.com, things will be acted upon. So Raven W, don't know the last name. I asked a few people why this ban happened, why it is a year long. It's quite a long ban. Apparently just consistent incidences of cheating, both at a local like armory level and then also moving up into those higher tier events at RTNs and ProQuests. These incidents were tracked. There was a cumulative pattern noticed by judges and other players and reported, and due to that, the player, it was deemed, should get a year-long ban. And of course, if they return to the game and these instances continue, you can expect that that ban will escalate. Then, of course, we have Roger B. I obviously know who this is, and we kind of have a direct understanding of why he was banned, as there was an email circling around that had some of the details. But remember, okay, it's important to draw two distinctions. One person was banned for cheating, which is, deliberately manipulating the outcome of the game via, illegal game actions. The other one was banned for unsporting conduct, which is doing something that LSS deems to be harmful to tournament integrity, other players, or to the game. One of the reasons I like reviewing what happened with different instances is that we can look at this and say, well, he's banned for unsporting conduct. That was related to how he tried to participate in a tournament that was being organized, not necessarily how he behaved towards other players. And we have that evidenced in a letter from LSS that we've seen, which laid out why he got banned. So if you are thinking, and this is roughly what happened, is that the Battle Hardened was sold out. He wanted to play because he was there. So first he said, hey, can I play? The organizers said no. Then he said, hey, can I play again? They said no. Then he went and found a table that didn't have a player at, close to the timer, played that game, and then went to the scorekeepers and said, oh, I played this game. I think you've put the wrong name down at this table, something like that, and tried to get put into the tournament, which was then caught. And he was like said, well, we told you no again, and then you've tried to sneak in. You've played a game against someone who should have got a bye, and then tried to, it just gets too complicated. So he's gotten what I call this a slap on the wrist ban, right? Any ban that is like 2 months long is a slap on the wrist. It's, you did something wrong, but let's not actually punish you for a long period of time, right? Let's just be like, no, that was ridiculous. You can do better. And then come back. And you see, we've had a few bans like that, especially of people who've been like consistently not doing that behavior, right? And then one of the most recent ones, of course, Brody, getting banned for, repeatedly slow playing. And that very much was a slap on the wrist saying, look, you need to work on your slow play. And if you don't, this will escalate. So this is just a warning to other people, do respect tournament organizers, do respect what's going on. And just a note on Battle Hardens, before we wrap up, it is just worth noting, there has been word passed down that all Battle Hardens will now be capped to a size that will allow that Battle Harden to finish all of its rounds before the venue closes. What that's going to look like is that Battle Hardens are going to be capped to 128, 224 players. And if you want to play in a Battle Hardened at a large event, my advice, instead of seeing how you do in the first event, is maybe just buy your ticket in advance and then refund it if you can't do. Now, I have been told there are a certain number of places reserved for people who make day 2 in a calling, for example. But if you're not thinking about you're going to make day 2 in the calling, if you know for sure you want to play in the Battle Hardened, do make sure you have a ticket for that, as they will become harder to get. Now, the logical question following on from that is, if you're capping a Battle Hardened in size, not because of the venue size, but because of the time limit size, is there then the argument that you should be running multiple Battle Hardens based on the size of the number of players that you have available? And that's just a thought I'll leave with you. You can give me your thoughts in the comments. Would you be happy if Battle Hardens are now capped at 224 players or 128 players? Should tournament organizers be running multiple? Should we now have a Battle Harden for each major format at super large events? Because I can guarantee you, when I was at Pro Tour London, firstly, I did not know the Battle Harden was capped until after the effect. So I don't think that was advertised very well. But equally, potentially, should there have been a second Battle Harden that was just classic constructed, and maybe a third Battle Harden that was blitz, and that way you could have 800 players playing in a tournament on the Sunday of the event that they wanted to play in, but of course not having the event run late because of a number of rounds you have to get a winner out of that many players. Just a thought to leave you with. Let me know what you think. This was Steelfur on Sunday, a new segment I'm trying. We're only on episode 3, so if you do like it, please do let me know, because that is what will give me the energy to keep doing this, even when I am slightly sick, unlike last week where I was just, it was not happening. Right. Thank you all, and I will see you all next Sunday.